Alright, off we go. It's the JMFPSP Sports Program on BWC Internet Radio. Tim's not here, but I am. I'm Ryan Hartson. Corey's not here either. I have to be here by myself because, of course, what goes on at cheap radio stations like this one, which is literally just me in my basement. Unfortunately, the technology was destroyed, so the final and highly anticipated edition of the Jim Miller for President Sports Program was completely corrupted. It is completely done. So we go through and we're breaking down all these brackets. We're going region by region, and it's going very well, very well. And last night we go on, and we just figure, all right, we're gonna break down these matchups and we're gonna pick these games on the air one by one. And then just everything went crazy. All the files were corrupted, and we had this great in-depth preview that we were going to put on the air in 4 or 5 parts. It was phenomenal. And it was the best JMFPSP that we had ever done. And unfortunately, you will never be able to hear it. So instead, we have been all the way reduced to me calling Tim and Corey and getting their Elite 8 and Final 4 picks, and me sitting here at 6:20 in the evening, the day after we did the goddamn show, and I have to break this down for you guys. So we'll start off with Tim's picks. In the Elite 8, he had Ohio State playing North Carolina. He had Duke playing UConn. He had Kansas playing Purdue. And he had Pitt playing Michigan State. And then he had Ohio State beating North Carolina and advancing to the Final Four. He had UConn beating Duke and going to the Final Four. And I believe he had Michigan State beating Pitt and going to the Final Four. And if I'm reading this right, Kansas, did I say Kansas beat Purdue? One way or the other. Kansas beat Purdue, and they move on. So his Final Four is Ohio State, UConn, Kansas, and Michigan State. Okay, and then I believe he had Kansas and Michigan State advancing to the national championship game with Kansas winning the title. I know one way or the other he has Kansas winning the title, and that's the most important part. By the way, the loser, I don't think this has even been announced because of all our bracket nonsense and our file corruption. The loser of this whole endeavor is going to suffer a fate worse than death. They are going to have to eat something that all of us despise, and if you like it, there is something wrong with you. You are going to have to eat liver. Liver. Liver is disgusting. It is the nastiest and most disgusting thing ever created by man, well, ever discovered by man. Like, oh yeah, let's eat the liver of a cow. Is it a calf? I don't even know which animal this liver comes from, but it's disgusting, and you fry it up with onions, and the whole thing sounds nasty. And me, Tim, and Corey all agree it's disgusting, and we don't want to do it. But if it turns out that liver tastes good to the loser, whoever loses this stupid bracket wager, if it turns out that you like it, you're going to have to end up doing a shot of vinegar as a punishment for this. So if you lose, you have to eat liver, but if you like liver, you have to do a shot of vinegar. And that is probably the worst, as bad as it gets. So for our bracket wager purposes only, loser eats liver, and if they like liver, they do a shot of vinegar. And that's how we roll. And I don't know how we're going to break a tie, but I'm pretty confident there's not going to be a tie. There's so many damn teams. So we went through Tim's picks. He has Kansas winning the title. We'll go on to my picks right now. In the Elite 8, I have Ohio State against Syracuse, Duke against UConn, Kansas against Notre Dame, and Pitt against Florida. I have Ohio State beating Syracuse. I have Duke beating UConn. I have Kansas beating Notre Dame, and I have Pitt beating Florida. So I have Ohio State, Duke, Kansas, and Pitt in the Final Four, with Duke and Kansas advancing to the national championship game, and Kansas is my national champion. So me and Tim share a national champion in Kansas. Okay, so now we'll move on to Corey. Corey had Ohio State and Syracuse, Duke and UConn. They had Kansas and Notre Dame, Pitt and St. John's. He's just totally copying me. He's a little poser. We're a tad different. Where are we different? We're different in the Southeast. Otherwise, he has all the same picks I do. Corey's a poser. There's no other way to describe it. And I don't even care what Tim's are. I'm not going to make fun of Tim. I'm going to make fun of Corey because he was editing, and he is going to get blamed for this, for the end of time, because the best JMFPSP ever is now the worst JMFPSP ever because Corey's computer sucks. So, we'll move on. He had Ohio State beating Syracuse. He had Duke beating UConn. He had Notre Dame beating Kansas, which is interesting. And he had Pitt beating St. John's. So his Final Four is Ohio State and Duke, and Notre Dame and Pitt. And in his national championship, he has Ohio State against Notre Dame, with Ohio State being your national champion. So those are the picks. Tim's got Kansas. I've got Kansas. And then Corey has Ohio State, picking the number 1 overall seed to win the tournament, which I'm pretty sure, since they decided picking number 1 overall seeds, it really hasn't happened that often. So we'll see about that. In my opinion, Ohio State is the deepest team in the tournament. So I hope you enjoy our brief breakdowns of the first round of the tournament. And we had something so much more in-depth planned. It was going to be so much fun. But unfortunately, all the files got corrupted because Corey's a moron. And one way or the other, the whole night last night ended up being a disaster. And it turns into me just telling you what the picks are. Again, Tim's national champion is Kansas, my national champion is Kansas, and Corey's national champion is Ohio State. Thank you so much for listening. We will be back next week. We'll talk about the first round of the NCAA tournament. We'll start previewing the second round. It's going to be good stuff from JMFPSP. I'm here every day breaking down games later in the week when games start to heat up, so it's going to be a lot of fun as we go forward. Thank you for listening, and we are sorry for the inconvenience. This has been the final edition of the Jim Miller for President Sports Program on BWC Internet Radio.